we're going to try again. Now the video is long ways. But who knows? I mean, y'all, Facebook is a cluster. My husband and children were looking at me today. I had the shirt on. It says, don't be a clam. Open up. And what's sad is that I spent like $30 on this t-shirt. I know, right? It's embarrassing. But I liked it so much. I don't know what it is about it that I just really liked. I think my boobs need to be higher. Maybe the shirt needs to be lower. Okay, now maybe Seton can get in. Hold
on. I mean, I was so proud. I had the video sideways, and then you couldn't get in. I was like, then I froze.
I'm sorry. Like, we went to the Atlanta-Charlotte United game today.
We're having a big time this afternoon. You had to come home and have a recovery?
I did, and I took a nap, and my husband just woke me and was like, wake up! You were supposed to be home with Adrian. I was like, oh, crap!
I texted you. I was like, I'm on. She's around somewhere. I was like, well, who knows? Is this fine? I'll just sit here and talk. I got nothing. Nothing.
No, I was taking a little nap.
If I could have taken a nap today. My problem with the nap is that I don't want to get up ever.
I'm living that right now.
So where'd you go this afternoon?
So Charlotte United's soccer team, is their first year, was playing Atlanta United, which is another soccer team, in Charlotte. And my sister lives in Atlanta, so we met up for National Siblings Day. That was kind of cool.
Oh, that was nice.
I didn't really know that was a real holiday, but apparently it is. Maybe it's a hallmark.
A few years ago on my radar, and I was like, damn it, like, where did that thing come from?
Yeah, so we went to the game together. It was super fun, and our producer of our podcast, actually, he and Matt have another podcast on the Charlotte Football Club. So it was kind of cool. I met up with Dwayne. We
nice
hung out before the game, and then we went to the game, and now I'm here after taking a nap.
Who won?
Charlotte.
Well, there you go.
And it's their first kind of big that they won.
Fun to have soccer, state soccer.
Yeah.
Give us do you like my new charm necklace?
I do really like that.
One of my subscribers.
Oh, so cool.
I used to have one when I was growing up, but my mother never kept anything.
My grandmother had the coolest charm bracelet ever.
Oh.
I think she got in financial trouble, and maybe she sold it. And my sister and I were going to fight over that. The one that was, we don't know what happened to the charm bracelet, but we love that charm bracelet.
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. My grandfather had one that I remember having in my jewelry box when I was, 12 or 13, and it was silver, and it was his, and he was a big baseball player, so it had tons of baseball charms on it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just, disappeared somewhere. You wonder where all the things go that you used to own.
Yeah.
That's what's happening with the Murdaughs.
It's it's a lot of legal stuff. So, I mean, we're having so this past week, our episode was kind of focused on kind of some old stuff that came out with, there was a lot of news about Maggie's phone. So I don't know if people know, but when Maggie and Paul were murdered, Maggie's phone was not immediately found. It wasn't found until the next day.
Okay, I think I remember that.
So there was a lot of talk this week about Maggie's phone and kind of how the evidence collection went with that, because family members went to the scene and kind of helped with the recovery of the phone.
Well, I read about that, and family members were even allowed in the house. Like,
that was, so we actually had the chance to interview John Marvin this week. So we talked to him, and
well, that and how
he kind of, what's that?
people want to hear about that, like what he said, and how you got that to happen. I think that was very exciting.
Yeah, so I basically, it was funny because got a lot of kind of pushback about that, like, oh, how did you get this? Like, are you old family friends? No, I've never been to, I don't know any of the Murdaughs personally.
Right.
I've not been invited to a barbecue at their house or anything like that. I basically just reached out to him on Facebook and said, hey, I have this podcast. Would you be willing to talk to me? And he responded. So I was kind of like, all right. So we kind of talked, and he gave me his version of events, and he didn't want to be recorded. He really doesn't listen to podcasts. So I get it. He was like, he has young children, and he's like, I don't have to, when I'm in the car, I can't listen to a podcast. That's not something that I can do. So I basically said, okay, let me take notes of what you're saying. I'm going to send you the notes, and then let's make sure what I'm saying is accurate. Good. So, and he was really like, he was kind of a nice person when I talked to him. I mean, I was genuine, but again, this is his version, so I'm not saying that this is the real version of events. This is just his version of events. So he said that the phone, he got there. He got a call from Alec that night. He was very upset. And
now, had Alec already said that his wife and son are murdered? Had Alec called the police yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if you 911 call, which we analyzed on the episode, I think it was maybe 2 episodes before.
Right.
Was actually allowed to hang up from the 911 operator, which was kind of unusual. Like, I mean, you can do what you can do, but it was unusual that the 911
night. Yes, Crystal called a night. Sorry.
So the 911, he hung up. He said, I need to go. I need to call family members.
Right.
So John doesn't know whether he contacted Randy. He probably called Randy first and then called John Marvin. Okay. Because Randy, his other brother, lived closer. Oh. So he called John Marvin and says, get here. It's bad. There's a situation. Oh. So John Marvin jumps in the car and goes, his brother's calling him saying Maggie and Paul have been hurt. Right. And so he goes, jumps the car to go see them. When he gets there, he says, he sees like a cordon off crime scene, which was where Maggie and Paul were murdered, which was like about 50, 75 yards. It's cordoned off.
Right.
With tape and stuff, and there's some, which he presumes to be Maggie and Paul's bodies, like there's tarps and stuff like that. So but he can't see it because that's covered.
Right.
And so into the night, they allow them to, at some point, the family's obviously very upset. They allow them to go into the house, which I kind of find, like, I thought that was really odd, like allowing them to go in the house. I mean, there was the crime scene, which was, I guess, where Maggie and Paul's bodies were, but you would think that they wouldn't allow them to go in the house. That bothered me.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, but then I can see, like, you hate to put yourself in that situation, but somebody could be out in your like it might have just felt totally separate, you know?
Right. And that's how and it's not really on the family. I mean, that's on law enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, law enforcement say where you can and cannot go. I mean, you can't make those calls as a family member, but,
Right.
and he considers the crime scene to be where it was taped off, and, that's where it was.
Right. It's not like they were murdered in the
And
house of the family. Come on in. Right. Right.
no, he came from a distance away, but I also think that's a law enforcement thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I agree. Yeah. That's not the family's problem.
No.
Hmm. So the family goes in the house. Have they taken Alec for questioning at this point?
I did not ask that question. I mean, I don't. I mean, I don't know. Speculation at my time at the point, but I mean, Alec was a day or two named as a person of interest, which is not surprising because when you deal with a homicide of a wife, usually the husband is kind of the first person you look at.
Mm-hmm. Though the son being in the middle of it really made it more shocking to me, I think, Anyway.
Yeah.
Did you ask him what he thought had happened? Who had done that?
I did not. So when we talked, he was kind of willing. I said, all right, let's talk about Maggie's phone, because that had been really newsworthy this week. There was a lot of talk about,
Right.
I guess, the day after the phone was found, he was named as a person of interest. The phone was, so this week there was a lot of just chatter about, okay, the phone, was found, and the next morning, I guess John Marvin, who is Alec's younger brother, was on the scene. So
Right.
that, there was just a lot of talk about that and whether that was appropriate on law enforcement's part and all that. So he was like, I'll talk to you, but I want to just deal with one specific,
Yeah. Oh, I get it. That'd be
all right, let's talk about
terrible.
So yeah, so we talked about Maggie's phone, and that's kind of where, and he wasn't familiar with the podcast format. That's not something he does. So he doesn't listen to podcasts. So he was like, all right, I might come on later at some point after I learn what podcasts are.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about, I was like, all right, let's talk about Maggie's phone. So I was like, okay, so he told me what happened in his mind the next morning.
Mm.
So I guess they were all up late into the night. They were allowed to go back into the house.
Right.
I don't know if they were allowed. They did go back in the house, but law enforcement knew they went back in the house.
Right.
And so the next morning they went back, and I asked him, I said, how did you become aware that Maggie's phone was not, found? So he really didn't know how, but he knew that Maggie's phone was missing. So Buster, which is Alec's son, said, I have an app on my phone and I can ping Mom's phone. So Alec or John Marvin told law enforcement of this ability. Like, okay, we might be able to locate Maggie's phone because.
Thing.
What's that?
Like Find My iPhone.
Yeah, I think it's Find My iPhone. I'm not sure exactly, but what app? But I think it was Find My Phone, where he was able to ping his mother's phone. So they advised law enforcement that, okay, we can find Maggie's phone by using this app, which we can ping and tells us where her phone is.
Right.
And so he advises law enforcement about this capability.
Right.
And they go, they walk down towards, for anyone who hasn't been there, there's two driveways at Moselle. There's one that kind of goes by the dog kennels, and there's another one that goes up by the house. And one that's by the dog kennels is kind of the one that looks to be the most used. If you look at like just the path, they're both gravel. It looks like that's where people go in, and that's where the mailbox is.
Is that
So if you're driving, wait, sorry, you froze up for a second.
that where we always see the front gates? Is that path?
No, so there's two. That's not the front. There are two paths, but the front gate that you see most of the time is the one that goes most directly to the main house. It's kind of like a little circle, but that's not the most used one. The most used one is the one that's by the mailbox that goes by the dog kennels.
Okay. Huh.
It looks like that's how many people would enter.
Okay.
Just, I mean, if you're getting your mail or your
right.
Again, just I having seen it, that looks like the place that was the it's most worn. It looks like that's kind of where it is.
Right.
So you know, they're walking down to where they think the phone is, you know, on the phone. They're pinging it and looking at it, and then they realize that it's not as close to, it's off the property. So at this point, John Marvin gets in a car with investigators from the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office. But then Sled, who is also on the scene, kind of comes behind them, and they drive to where the phone is showing it's located.
Well, thank goodness. I thought you were going to tell me that John Marvin was just, you know, up and went and found the phone on
No. I mean, again, this is his version, so I mean, I can only say what he's told me. But I mean, in his version of events, which is also consistent with what the statement that Sled and the 14th Circuit released a joint statement. It's consistent with what they say.
Right.
Again, we take this all with a grain of salt. I was not on the We've gotten a lot of heat. I'm like, no, I wasn't on the scene. I'm just telling you what people have told me.
Well, I don't know why you would get heat. I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
Well, a lot of stuff doesn't make sense.
Oh.
But so they go and drive to, you know, not far. I think it was like a half mile from their property. Again, don't quote me on that, people, because I'm just making. But to where it is, and they're all pinging and they're searching for the phone. So Sled is on one side of the road, John Marvin's on the other side of the road. The actual officer from Sled locates the phone. At this point, they stop. Everyone backs up. They create a crime scene. Again, according to John Marvin.
Yeah.
And they take pictures of where the phone is. They back up. They take pictures before, during, and after the phone is found.
Oh.
And, you know, look into, you know, that. I mean, this is what he says. I don't know. He sounded like he was telling me the truth.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole purpose of what you're telling us is what he told you. So that's just what we're
yeah.
Yeah. How far away was it from the house then?
So, I mean, the house, I could not, when I went there, you can't see the house from the road. So I don't know how far it is from the house to the driveway.
Yeah.
Like the front of the driveway. But from the front of the driveway, I think it was approximately about a half mile from where they found the phone. And they were pinging it.
Moon, like upside down in the bushes, or?
You want some ramen?
I don't know for sure exactly. I mean, it had rained the night before. So we know that there was rain the night before. I don't think it was raining the day that they found the phone. So there was a lot of questions about whether evidence could be found on the phone. We don't know. And we actually talked about this way back when the phone was found. Like, all right, phone was found, but it might not be. there might not be any retrievable like DNA actually off of the phone because of the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The other thing is, so they did ask John Marvin to get the code to unlock the phone. So
how was he going to get that?
he was on, so he had Buster's phone because Buster's phone was the one that was locating the phone. So he did call Alec, and he said, I don't really know exactly. He called Alec because he had Buster's phone and said, hey, what's the code to get into Maggie's phone? And I think maybe Buster he's like, I don't know if Alec gave it to me or Buster gave it to me, but he did get the phone. So there's been a lot of question about the phone was unlocked right there and whether that should have happened at a crime lab. But you also know there's an active investigation going. So I don't know the answer to that question. It should have been, we should have waited until it was back in a crime lab to be opened.
Well,
but there's also,
they might be thinking there could be a text on here to somebody like, help me, so-and-so's got me, So John Marvin is Alec's brother, Kathy.
Yeah, we don't know. Like it could, yeah, I don't know what the situation is. And also, so someone also asked about, there's been questions of whether there should have been a subpoena to have been allowed to open her phone. So that was also another question. But apparently, with the deceased, don't
died.
What's that?
I think the fact that she wasn't alive, you don't have to do that anymore. I think
that's what we were told, that if someone's dead, you don't actually have to have a subpoena to open someone's phone.
Right.
So that was okay.
Uh-huh. Huh.
But I mean, again, maybe it would have been better to open it at a crime lab. I'm not sure, but you also at this point in time, you've got someone. Yes and no. You've got who is like running. You've got someone who've murdered two people running around.
Right.
But then law enforcement came out. They said Alec person of interest.
You put the ramen in there.
But then
in their wallet.
There was no threat to public safety. So
right. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it seems a little bit squirrely.
That no threat to public safety bit has always loomed super large in my mind, because that means that they can unequivocally say, we know there's not some stranger out here lurking around that did this. Don't you think?
Yeah. No, yes. I mean, I think that is the biggest thing. Like, so you're saying there's no threat to public safety.
Yeah.
But we still don't have answers 10 months later.
Well, I was watching this, I guess it was maybe on last night, and it was about this woman and her husband was murdered, and then they arrested the guy that shot him, but then they didn't arrest her for about 10 months. And they knew they just had to go through and get all the evidence. It was like there was evidence immediately on her phone that said, like, better take that sticker off your truck. They saw it and they were like, yeah, that's not enough to charge. I mean, they had to, just with so much digging, and I guess they wanted the case really strong. But
and people, including myself, people are really upset about this, the fact that it has been such a long period of time that there's been no arrests, yet no threat to public safety. But I guess, what prosecutors have told me is you have one chance to prosecute.
Right.
So you literally have to have everything perfect, because if you don't want to mess that up.
Right. Yeah. So somebody said, so could Alec have left the scene and driven off the property to dump that phone when he got off the phone with the 911 operator?
Well, I mean, I think it's
possible.
possible.
would have, if it were him, to me, you would have already done that before you called 911. But
yeah, I mean, he could have done that. I mean, again, he doesn't seem like a person who is in his right mind. I mean, now he's confessed judgment to, $7 million of insurance fraud that he was taking money off of it. So he's had a lot of confessions of judgment. He's confessed a lot of these financial crimes. He hasn't confessed all of the financial crimes, but he has confessed, especially with his, former housekeeper who died at his house, who received a settlement that he, misappropriated funds and stuff. So it seems like, he's confessing to that particular case. Seems most likely that he's going to confess to more financial crimes.
right.
I mean, I don't know, like, he wasn't a person in his right mind, so maybe he could have done that. And with all of this, I mean, stuff that I never thought would happen. I'm like, when he attempted the fake murder suicide, I'm like,
That was a shock.
that was a shock. It was insane.
Yeah.
So he could, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that's likely.
Yeah. Somebody said, I can answer the question for Seton because I know Seton, but they said, Seton, did you ask them about the state of their marriage?
No, I actually did not, because I am, I guess I had read, there was an Island Packet article and there was a Post and Courier article. The Post and Courier article, which is a newspaper out of Charleston, kind of did a story about kind of a more brought Maggie to who she was. They brought Liz on, who is John Marvin's wife, and she kind of gave some details about, apparently she was very close to Maggie, so she kind of gave some details about their relationship and that sort of thing. And I would encourage everybody to read it. It was a very interesting article. But I think when I talked to John Marvin, it was like, all right, I'm willing to talk to you about this one specific thing. I will talk to you about other questions that you have along the way. And I actually said, I would love to have somebody on our podcast who knows Maggie, because that's a big question. Like, people want to humanize the victims in this. Yeah, they want to humanize them. So I really wanted to, but I think I maybe can get that to happen. But at first, he wanted to just deal with this. Let's talk about the fact.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah. And I don't blame him. And now you've built sort of a rapport with him, and it's like, okay, she did exactly what she said she was going to do. So there might come another time where you could ask him another question, or whatever.
Well,
I think that was
the reason why I think that he was being honest, because I was taking notes really quickly when I was interviewing him, and then I sent him an email saying, okay, this is what our notes were. And there was one thing I was like, all right, when we were talking, I kind of made my own conjecture about, okay, so you felt an urgency to find Maggie's phone because you knew that there was limited battery life. And actually, when I sent him the whole thing, he was like, there were a couple of changes. He was like, no, take that out. That's not how I felt. He was like, I really wasn't thinking at that point. I just was doing. I wasn't thinking about battery life or that. So he actually said that. So I'm like, well, that kind of probably made him look more favorable to say, I felt like it was urgent to find Maggie's phone because who knew how long the battery is going to stay on.
Right.
And no, take that out because that's not how I felt.
Yeah, I just thought we need to find the phone.
Go ahead.
Janie was just saying there was a private eye following Paul.
Oh yeah, so that was another thing. So the episode before last, there there's a lawsuit involving the Beach family, who Mallory Beach was the young lady who died in a boating accident, and Paul was the accused driver of the boat when this happened. So Parker's convenience store it's a chain of gas stations, convenience stores. This is where several of the boaters allegedly purchased alcohol prior to the boating accident.
Right.
So there was it was actually a hearing transcript, which I read. It was really kind of crazy. So Parker's in this transcript was allegedly hired a PI to follow Paul around. And I guess what they were trying to prove was that Paul was up to his old shenanigans. It didn't matter if they sold him alcohol. He was buying it and doing all the stuff everywhere.
Right.
It really didn't matter.
Bit of character.
Right.
Yeah,
prove that his character, he is still, even after the boating accident where Mallory Beach was killed, he was still up to his own shenanigans. He's buying alcohol, doing all this stuff. Right. And it's kind of like, it's kind of crazy. It says that this PI purchased alcohol for other minors, and in return they would kind of give they would tell him about Paul and his shenanigans. I mean, it is so. But then the PI, when it reads pretty crazy. Like I read, I was like, oh, whoa, this is not good. But then the PI went.
PI is credibility.
Well, the PI then went another. She went on another show and said, "Oh no, I didn't do any of that." But the biggest thing out of all of the PI stuff, there was a lot of salacious stuff that she maybe bought alcohol for minors. She's following around Paul, all this stuff. But then it says that she placed a video camera at Murdaugh to kind of track Paul and Paul's coming and goings. So Murdaugh obviously is the property that Maggie and Paul died on. Right. And so there could be Tinsley, who is the attorney representing the Beach family, says that there's this video which has been turned over to SLED that might have evidence of the coming and goings of the Murdaugh property in the days leading up to Paul and Maggie's murder. Oh. But so that could be big, like that, and the evidence has been turned over to SLED. So that could be like really
major
breaking. That could be major, really major. But then she went on. She did an interview with the Post and Courier, Charleston newspaper, and also a local TV show that basically said, "No, sorry, I was only hired to follow him for 1 month, and it was not within the month. Like it was like, I don't know. I don't have my notes in front of me. Like February to March or something like that. It wasn't the days leading up to Paul and Maggie's murders. So I really don't know if that's, I don't know if that's accurate or not. But Tinsley then has since said, I stand by my statement. So we'll see how that plays out. Yeah. And none of this has had to do with the deaths of Maggie and Paul. That's all having to do with, it's kind of this side lawsuit. So there's a side lawsuit going on where Mark Tinsley, the attorney who is representing the Beach family, is saying, we have been harassed by the attorneys and the Parker's law firms. They've hired people to kind of do this campaign against the Beach family, saying, like a social media campaign and all this stuff, basically saying that to discredit the Beach family and to harass them.
Right.
So attorneys for the Beach family have said, all right, yeah, this has caused us emotional distress.
Oh.
We are going after the Partridge family. But so that we've got this existing, but this is how all of this stuff has come out. But interesting, during all this, we know now that there could potentially be videos that could aid in the investigation of Maggie and Paul's death.
Well,
but
what was I going to ask you? Oh, Melissa said she felt bad for Buster. And I was going to say, well, that was something you and I really had discussed when those recordings came out, that we felt like Buster was just kind of being a normal person.
No, when I talked to him, yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to Buster, but when I listened to the jailhouse tapes, I felt sympathetic for him. I mean, this is a person who has lost his mom, has lost his brother, his dad's in jail, has confessed to some pretty terrible things. I mean, I don't know. He's a young person. He's 25, I believe. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. And Alec was not a sympathetic character to me on the recordings at all. Not saying that it had anything to do with the murders, but I did not feel sympathetic towards him as he was talking. I just felt weirded out personally.
I don't think many people feel sympathetic to Alec. I mean, this is a person who has confessed judgment to a former housekeeper's family that they should have received a settlement for millions of dollars, yet he's confessing he took that millions of dollars. So it's really difficult to feel sympathetic to someone. I don't think anyone feels sympathetic to him, but just because he doesn't mean that his son, I mean, maybe he could be a terrible person. I don't really know him personally, but he might be.
Right. Yeah, it's just so weird. It's like this would be its own story, even if it were just the theft, right? Like that is enough of a story to have theft. But then to tie in all this murder stuff to it, it's just so weird. So before we get off, because we've used up enough of your time, when do we hear anything about when more charges are brought?
I did fall asleep, so really I feel so bad about that. I was like, wake up,
That's
you're supposed to be on.
Or I would forget. No, do you hear any rumblings about when there might be other charges filed? I mean,
but there's more financial charges that will be coming. Like, that's where I think people are really frustrated, because there's more and more financial stuff that's coming out, and we're hearing a lot about that. But we don't know. I think people want to know about the criminal stuff. I mean, there's active criminal investigation.
I'm done with the stealing. Yeah,
people, like, we know you're a terrible person. You stole a lot of money from a lot of people.
Right.
So, and more of that stuff is going to come, but also think hopefully we'll hear about Maggie and Paul. Hopefully we'll hear about Stephen Smith. Hopefully hear about the investigation into Gloria Satterfield, the housekeeper who died, death. Those are active police investigations, and we're not hearing a lot about that. But I kind of think the most interesting stuff that's going to be coming out is, we've had Corey Fleming, his former BFF. He's been charged. There's going to be more charges. I kind of think that maybe we're judges, we don't have current charges against Chad Westendorf or Russell Lafitte, who are the bankers involved.
Right.
But I kind of feel like those are coming. I think, Carmen Mullen, who was the judge who signed off on the Satterfield stuff, I think that could be coming. So I think those are kind of the things that we're going to be looking for in the near future. Like the the judges, the lawyer, like as we kind of unravel this whole thing, those are going to be the next. I mean, we hope to hear more about the criminal stuff, but I think the judges and the layers of corruption that, and possibly law enforcement. You know, the other thing, I don't know if anybody read a note about this, but, or sentiment. So there was a former Yemisi, I think he's a Yemisi police, I don't know if he's a captain or what, he's actually running for Hampton County Sheriff. He received a $5,000 loan from Alec. Now, he says this loan was in March. The check was dated March before he died. But then Fitz News reported this, and Fitz News said it was from, I think it was like a couple weeks after Maggie and Paul's death. So he is still currently running for Hampton County Sheriff. And he is saying that it was a loan that was for his parents, their friends, loan for his parents. And he wasn't sure if it had been repaid or not. But then if you look at his campaign donations for his being a plight to be sheriff, he received a lot of donations from Murdaugh contacts. He, you know, most of the members of Alec's firm or law firm donated, you know, and family members. So he's received donations from this. So it's murky.
Well, and then you think, okay, well, maybe this was like some sort of weird hit, and maybe Alec didn't have anything to do with the murder of his wife and son. But then you go back to there's no harm or risk to the public. And then you're like, well, then that couldn't be true. You know, it's like playing this game of pick a path. You pick a path, and then you're like, well, that path doesn't make sense because that would mean this. So it's super tricky. So Cousin Eddie, where is Cousin Eddie?
Well, I am not. I kind of feel like Cousin Eddie, you know, I had reached out to his attorney way back after all this, and he didn't respond to my request. So that's actually another thing I would like to point out for anyone who says like, oh, you guys are all in the Murdaugh camp. I'm like, nope, I've reached out to Cousin Eddie's attorney. He chose not to speak to me.
Well, and you and I we were really on Team Cousin Eddie. And then Cousin Eddie disappointed us.
No, I
wanted to love Cousin Eddie, and then I heard Cousin Eddie had taken like $7 million from Alec.
Okay, wait. I'm hearing multiple. I don't know what's happened.
No, I said I want. Can you hear me?
I can. There's echo. Or what's happening? I can hear you now.
Okay. I wanted to love Cousin Eddie.
No, it's not sure what's happening. Like it's just repeating everything.
Oh. Well, next week.
I'm going to have to log out and then log back in. Hold on. I'll do it.
I got to go put Amos in the bed. I was going to ask her. I was going to say next week. We could talk next week.
Hey, Mommy, I want some pancakes.
You do?
Yes.
Well, that was very nice talking. Okay. Hey, Mommy, I want some pancakes.
No, not sure.
Okay, you close the door. And I'll get the pancakes. Smells like somebody has burned up this kitchen. Hey.
I don't know what happened.
Who knows? I mean, just who knows? Anyway, no, I said
No,
I really wanted to like Cousin Eddie.
I did too. But so his lawyer has been radio silent for a long time. I feel like, and he didn't show up for his last hearing. So I kind of think what happened with Cousin Eddie is he was either didn't pay his lawyer, or I'm not real sure. But
Oh,
I don't think he didn't show up at his last hearing. So Cousin Eddie he's out. I don't know what's happening with him. I don't feel like his lawyer is
very good.
maybe representing him anymore. I think maybe his lawyer ditched him. I don't know, but
That's
who
scary.
knows?
Yeah.
Cousin Eddie didn't show up at his hearing, so I think he has an order against him.
Oh, that no good.
Not good. No.
Poor Eddie. Poor Eddie.
Yeah.
Well, thank you look what my daughter has made. Ramen noodles with an egg on top. Are you going to eat it or have it?
Delicious.
It's really creative cooking around here.
I like it.
Who needs fancy?
I probably need to go find my children because, again, I was sleeping on the couch.
Go feed them. Thank you. Tune in soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye. And my peoples, I don't know what our schedule is tomorrow, so you'll just have to wait and see. If his attorney resigned, there should be a note in the file. Oh, so exhausting. I mean, there's just so much. No, I just do not feel 100%. If I have that stomach bug, it's going to be bad times.
How do you have a stomach bug?
I don't, you can't just put a burnt
That's Russell's.
pot in the sink.
Well, that's from Russell.
Ooh. Okay. Well, you all really have trouble not burning things.
I didn't burn anything.
Okay. Well, your pan.
I just didn't use enough butter.
Oh, didn't use enough butter. Monday
I
coffee.
was going to use milk, but it was too
That should be good unless I have the pukes. I mean, I'm telling you, I just am feeling a little not good. I have it very tired.
Ask the supporters if I should go to New York.
No, I'm not asking the supporters about you going to New York. I think it's the chili. Oh, don't talk to me about the chili. Yeah, we'll plan on 10 unless I'm.
Maybe with Mama and
Love y'all.